Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T. Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Miss T.
Can't wait for you to meet Miss T. She is the T in T.
Welcome all the way back. I have 10 more tips for you. These are 10 things that I didn't get when I was first starting all this business stuff. I didn't find it in a book. I didn't find it on the internet. I didn't find it in a person that was telling me why, because I started something from nothing with nothing. So I had a lot of learning to do in this process. And my hope in sharing this with you is that you won't have to have such a rough start or a rough time scaling up that I did because I didn't know certain things. So today we're going to dive in with number 31. All right. It is hard letting people go. Okay. So the first handful of times I did this, like when I had to release somebody from their assignment, we don't say words like fire around here because I don't like it because it's so harsh. But the first times that I had to let somebody go because they weren't fulfilling the assignment, because they weren't growing into the role, because it just flat out wasn't working because of other personal things that were outside the organization, I literally cried. Now, listen, this is not a female thing. This is an attachment thing. When you start working with people, you know, if you're anything like me, and I really try to invest in love and support the people that work with and for me. So when you have to do a thing like tell them, you know, there's no longer a role or a position here, it's really hard. It's like you're breaking up with someone you care about, someone that you want to see grow and do well in life. And I even have that experience when, you know, it's a team member that becomes salty or sour. Like I still feel some kind of way about the whole process of release and them, you know, graduating to their next assignment. And so, you know, if I could offer you a tip around this, it's hard letting people go, but you got to know when it's time to let people go. And you know this, again, if you just keep it strictly business, you know this because of performance, you know this because of attendance, you know this because of their posture and how they're showing up every single day. But it's your job as a leader to know when it's time for someone to grow and when it's time for someone to go. Now, because I'm working with not just individuals, but teams of people, if you let someone stay past their expiration date, things start to get sour. And then just like mold, it'll spread. So if you don't let somebody go when it's time for them to go so that they could grow or your organization can grow, they get sour. And then that sour has the potential to spread. And what you don't want is someone who's sour or someone who's not willing to grow or someone who's complacent hanging on to a position in a department in your company or public facing with your customers, and they're salty or sour. So again, a tip. One of the most challenging things as a business owner and business leader is letting people go. So if you can get used to the idea and build a plan for it now, you know, how they're showing up is not, you know, they're not gung-ho and supportive and involved and in it and grinding and ready to grow and change and support the company, then you know that there's a problem there. And so a couple things that I do just to help you out, because I don't just be like, you know, off with their head. Like I don't do that. But I do, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? I do have some conversation first when I recognize something. But first you have to be connected enough to be able to recognize. So that's another thing is I never take my eyes, my hands, my support, my attention off the people that are working side by side with me. So if they're hurting or anything like that, I want to make sure that I have the ability to recognize it and then have a conversation about it. And then secondly, if the organization is no longer working for them, their goals, career goals, or their growth goals, is there something we can do to shapeshift to make it conducive for your growth so that the company keeps growing? If not, then let me help you find another opportunity that works for you and where you want to go. And then third, if it's just not working, don't, you know, my mentor used to tell me, don't cut the monkey's tail off 1 inch at a time, just cut it off. Sometimes people are like, okay, well, we'll give them a month to do what? Like a month to burn your stuff down and take some folks with them? That's crazy. No, you just cut it off. And so again, I didn't learn this in the beginning of building my business. And I could tell you this has been something that I would take home with me and really be, distraught around because of how I love and want to support people. So I'm telling you, if you could do this ahead of time, if you could do this before you scale, get it in your mind that this is a part of business ownership and leadership, and make a plan for it. And then get this, if you're not the one to do it, make sure you have the right person on your team that will do this with this set of parameters. So it's done in excellence, it's done with compassion, it's done with kindness, and it's done with everybody's growth and well-being being considered. All right, here's number 32. Things that I didn't know when I got into all of this is you will become, as a leader, as the business owner, as the person who's standing in front of your business, the face of the brand, the one who's steering the ship. You will become, to your employees, your team members, your vendors, part-time contractors, whatever, you won't just be a boss. You will shapeshift a little bit, and you will become a coach. You'll become a friend. You'll become a confidant. I have found over, almost 30 years of doing entrepreneurship that, I don't always show up as the boss that says, do this, and then they get it done. Most often, I'm coaching people, educating people, and giving them access to things that'll help them develop, more than it's me giving a set of directives and the expectations that things get done. And then I find that I show up a lot as just like a buddy. Sometimes they need to talk. Sometimes they have stuff going on at home that they carry into the workday, and so they can't get the work done because they're wrestling with some things. And so I spend a good amount of time just engaging in a way that shows them that, yes, this is a safe place. It's a workplace, but it's also a safe place. And that if you are, having an emotional struggle, that this is not where we pretend like life isn't happening. And then the other thing, with regard to confidant, I have people that have worked with me now for like over a decade. My staff, there are people that were products of the program, like they came in as students or clients and evolved to staff members and team members. And so when I say the word confidant, I mean, I've watched, individuals go from elementary school students to high school students to college graduates to employees with company to parents with children to grandparents. If you can even imagine that, I've watched people become grandparents. And so when you have that kind of lifespan in relationship, professional relationship, you watch each other go through things. And when you watch each other go through just the things of life, sometimes because we spend so much time around each other in a day, we talk about it. So you want to make sure as a leader that you understand that you may show up wearing multiple hats in the lives of the people that work with and for you. But here's the warning. Because of all the laws and because of how sensitive people can be today and how odd things can get when you don't have proper boundary systems, it is your job as the leader and the owner and the driver of the ship and the builder of the organization that you make sure that lines don't get blurry. It is okay to coach. It is okay to mentor. It is okay to encourage. It is okay to guide. It's okay to friend. It is also okay to be a confidant. What it's not okay is when your staff member or your team member doesn't know which person is showing up in which moment. So there are times when we're having conversation where I say, we got to clock out for this. Let's take a walk around the building. We got to clock out for this conversation. And there are times when I say, hey, I'm not the right person to share that with. Let me see if I can get you the right help for this situation. And then there are times where I say, listen, I got my boss hat on and I can't take it off in this moment. And that's who's showing up and either reprimanding and correcting you or encouraging you. But I make sure that I'm clear with my team member about who's actually showing up in the moment with them and how we're going to handle it. It is your job as the owner and the leader to know when you need to do that. Because most often when people start companies and they're doing things and you're all things to all people and they're all things to you, that's how people get into lawsuits. That's how people get into real trouble. So you want to make sure that you have your systems and structures in place where it allows you to really fully support your team members holistically, but in a safe way for you, a protective way for the company, and in a kind and protective way for your team members. Now, I can't give you the details of how to do that. You want to talk to somebody in HR. And that's another thing. You might have to hire somebody for HR. Just because working with people, it's a really tricky thing. Having people work for you, it's a really tricky thing. And if you're ignorant of that, it will make for really tough business, success of your business, monetizing your business going forward. And I learned the very hard way. I don't want you to learn the hard way. I learned through mistakes. You want to learn not through the kind of mistakes I made. It wasn't fun. It was very hurtful. And there were times where I just felt attacked and misunderstood, but that's only because I didn't know then what I know now and what I'm telling you now. So just know, number 32, you will show up in your team members' lives as multiple different individuals. It is your job to know who you need to be and when. It is also your job to make sure they know who is posturing themselves in front of them in what situations. It's so critically important that you go into things, or as you start to scale things, that you know this, especially if you have a company that's working with people. But my point is, you will be a coach, you will be a friend, you will be a confidant, and those are all wonderful things. Just make sure that you have a system that protects you and protects your team members, and everybody in the equation knows who is showing up and when, and that you just have a support, and so that you continue to grow with a strong team that's doing really strong things. We're on number 33, and it is, you must, as a leader, be aware of the leadership optics. How are people seeing you in your company as the leader? And it doesn't matter how you see you. And this is where I errored multiple times. Let me tell you how. I always felt like, when I started my company, I didn't want to be a boss, if you will, that was so distant from the people that we were serving, or distant from the people that were working with and for me. Like, I wanted to be with the team. I wanted to make sure that they know I'm relatable. I'm still connected. I'm down. And that was problematic, because that's how I wanted to be seen, but that's not how I was seen. So when my team members, like when I would, and again, I just did a gesture that says when I would stop down, I even cringe a little bit with doing that. But when I would try to equalize myself with the team, it would get confusing for the team, because they're not looking at me like as a peer. They're looking up at me as the leader. And where that becomes problematic is when there's a crisis, when there's a challenge, when there's a fire. They don't want someone next to them. They want someone that they can look to, that's going to lead them up and out of whatever it is that the company is going through, the team is going through, the department is going through, the individual is going through. So number 33, really important, is you have to be very keenly aware of the optics of leadership. What does leadership look like in the eyes of your people, in the eyes of your people that you're partnering with, your customers? What does that look like? Now, I'm not saying you have to strive to become what people look like. I'm saying you got to be aware of what people are thinking when they're seeing you, the leader. And then make sure that you're either complying in a way that gives the people the comfort and the confidence in you as the leader, or adjusting their perspectives. Because sometimes people look to me in a way that it's like, it's totally not fair. Okay, so I'm telling you about this one time. I'm standing in the parking lot talking to my staff, right? We're in the thick of it. We're doing this big event. We're doing a bunch of things. I'm flying all over the stinking place. I'm doing all kind of stuff. And then we remember, oh no, Miss T, you haven't shot your podcast. We need 4 episodes. Like 4? episodes, but I'm doing all this other stuff. And they say to me, well, you could come in at, dark 30 in the morning and we can do it then. I'm like, that means I'm only going to get 2 hours of sleep. And that's 2 hours from the 3 hours that I was only able to get because I'm doing all this stuff. So the optics of leadership was that, well, she could just get up earlier and do this thing. And I'm just thinking like, well, hold on a second. I had to help some people with perspective. I'm doing this. I literally didn't even go to bed last night until 4 a.m. and I woke up at 6 a.m. Can I do it? Sure. Is that a legitimate request for someone with the volume of weight that is on this particular plate during this season, though? I had to adjust the optics of my team as far as leadership, as far as what I can do. Now, could I have done it? Yeah. Did I do it? You better believe I did. I'm weird like that. I like challenges. But in the same breath, I have to be protective of myself. I can't be running myself into the ground, especially since I believe I got another 25 years at least doing this. And I'm building other things so I can graduate to doing other things. But I'm not a quitter, but I'm not a complainer, but I have to be protective. And so in that moment, I had to shift the perspective of my team by way of how they're seeing me as a leader show up in this season of my life. That is your job. It is not people's job to understand you. It's your job to help them understand you, the leader, as you lead well. So I think that, sometimes we can overperform and it gives people an impression that is true. You're a hard worker. You're a doer. You're a go-getter. You're a make it happen kind of person. Those are all true things, but that can't be true 24/7. That's true, but it can't be true 24/7. So it's your job to manage that kind of stuff. And then the second thing that I would offer around this particular subject is, I'm real in a professional way. I try to be with my team. I let them know like, hey, like I can do it, but can we consider this instead? Because I feel like if I don't get sleep, it's going to be very problematic for us organizationally because I'm not going to show up well. Or like there was a season when my son was going away to college. My daughter moved out of the house. My oldest daughter was already long gone. I'm not married right now and I'm at home alone and I'm an empty nester for the first time. And that season of my life, I've never been so emotional. Like I couldn't even tell you why I was emotional. I was just emotional. And then I grew up, single mom, 6 kids. I never had my own room. I never had my own bed. I always shared a bed with someone for as long as I can remember. And for the first time in my life, I'm a singular. So I'd be sitting in meetings and all of a sudden my eyes are tearing up. I'm like, listen, guys, I don't even have an explanation for this. I'm just emotional right now. So I had to communicate with them as a leader. This is the season of life that I'm in. I am not, it's not that I'm lacking in strength or talent or ability, but I need you to see me in this moment because I still have to go through this moment. And unfortunately, and fortunately, because you're with me, you're going to have to go through it with me. And so, again, being honest and being real with your team, just practice that from the get. You're not superhuman. You're a human trying to be super. So number 33, make sure that you're clear about your optics as a leader, optics that you need to convey to people and the optics that are wrapped around you because of what people think you should be as a leader. That's so critically important. So ultimately, you're the person that is tasked with this. So make sure that you have a plan, that you plan ahead, and that throughout your experience in building and growing your company, that you connect regularly with the people around you so that they can see you and understand you and work with you really well. Here's number 34. Are you ready, Eddie? Because I'm ready to give it to you. Okay, so this one used to make me cry. I used to lose sleep at night over this one, number 34. Payroll is intimidating, but once you start growing and legitimizing yourself as an actual company with a strong brand, you're gonna have to consider something called payroll. Hated it in the beginning because all the taxes that are attached to it, and then people come and then people go, and there's a process for all of that, and then filing things and paperwork and having to have a company and printing checks. I started my company when you had to still print a check and then mail the check and hand out the checks to people. Direct deposit wasn't like a thing, and it became a thing. Now it's easier in that respect, but payroll was very intimidating. The whole process of it, the setup of it, the responsibility of it. I think once I started, doing pay, I grew to the place where I had to do payroll. I believe, that's when I really, grew to the understanding like, gosh, I'm like, this company is like paying people's bills and keeping them, their families fed. Like the weight of responsibility presented itself once I started doing that. And so, the reason I say, for this particular one, that payroll is intimidating because it is. You start to realize that you're actually responsible for people making it. You know what I mean? And it's not that people don't have capabilities. It's not that they're not showing up in a way, where they're earning their keep or anything like that. It's just that it's a lot and it's a stressor. And so if I could get you thinking ahead of time, like again, if you're in the beginning stages of this, that's a thing. Start researching things like, the payroll companies that are out there, payroll services that are out there. Start having those kinds of conversations. Get on the EDD website. I'm here in California, and that's what we call our employment department. But you want to research, what are the requirements? What are the standards? What are the freaking forms? The forms. And there's like quarterly ones and annual ones, and OMG. Do your homework now so that as you graduate and scale and really get into building out your business, these are business tips for business people. You want to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row, because I promise you this, if you don't understand this payroll thing and you don't like really, really know your things and what's due and when and have a system for that, they will come for you, and you don't want them to come for you. You want to make sure that you're ready. And then you want to make sure your company is financially ready, because it's a different thing, supporting somebody with a side hustle and you just kind of, doing the cash under the table thing. It's a whole different thing when you got to do something on record, make sure the proper taxes are taken out, make sure the proper forms are filed, and making sure that people are aware. Like there's so many things that changes in a state based on how people vote. And sometimes, when you're in the thick of building a company, you're not paying attention to all that stuff. So I'm telling you now, either you do the research if you like that kind of stuff. I did, and I had to get help. Or you find somebody who is doing that sort of investigative work as a volunteer and just informing you, or as someone that's on your team to help support you in that. Because it's a gnarly thing when you're in the business of doing business and people are working with you and you don't have the proper systems and structures as it pertains to payroll to support the people in your business. It becomes very ugly very quickly. And I really just don't want to experience anything like that again. Remember, I'm only doing this because I want to help people. I want to help you. I want to help you avoid some of the things that, I was up to my neck in stress and pressure and in challenge because I simply didn't know. So number 34 is payroll is intimidating. It's intimidating. And I don't want it to be intimidating for you. So learn it now. Feel free to put questions in the chat. If you have, like, I know, the comment section of this, just put them in there and I will help you the best that I can or point you in the direction of the answer, because I really, truly want this to not be a landmine that you step on as you're building this glorious company that's your baby, especially if you're working with people. So number 34 is payroll's intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. If you get in front of it now, learn as much as you can now, set up some systems and structures now, so that as you graduate to that layer of business, You got it all dialed, sweetie. So again, payroll's intimidating, but only if you don't do the work and you let it be. Okay, don't get mad at me, okay? Do not get mad at me. But if you're a business owner and you're the leader, tip number 35, you're probably not going to like. Tip number 35 is no matter who messes up in your company, it's all your fault. So the weight of responsibility ultimately is always all yours. Why? Because you're the boss. You're the leader. You're the innovator. You're the creator. You're the founder. You're the CEO. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So you can't get mad at your staff. You can't get mad at your team. You can't get mad. As long as you accept this thing from the very beginning, from the ground floor, before you start scaling anything, if you can accept this, you'll always show up in a way that you can problem solve. It will always be your fault if somebody messes up. Now, you can address the mess up, you can triage the situation, you can problem solve, and you can try to prevent. But bottom line, the buck always stops with you. And this, when I'm coaching CEOs and business owners and founders and trying to help them scale, this is very problematic for them. It's so easy to point at your team and say they didn't do this right. It's so easy. Like I have situations, I own a very large commercial property. It's so easy for me to blame the nut job that's walking down the street, not in their right mind, and they throw something and break my windows. It's easy for me to blame that person. But you know what? It's my building on my block with my name on it and my staff in it. And yeah, they threw it, but whose responsibility is it? It's my responsibility to fix it. So I can fault them all day long, but the bottom line is, deal with it. And before I was like, no, it's not fair. Why do they get to get away with it? Listen, sweetie, and that's not this podcast episode. That's not even this podcast. That's my book. Yeah, I got a book. But that's a victim's mindset. If you're building a company, there's literally no room for that. You can't even think like that because you're the leader. And if you're like me, you're the founder. And if you're like me, you're the CEO. And if you're like me, like I'm everywhere. Like I can't even give myself a millisecond to think like a victim. It's not my fault. It's their fault. They're not helping me. They broke it. They didn't do it right. That's hey, don't get mad at me. That's kid stuff. If you are the leader, if you are the boss, if you are in charge, if you are the founder, the creator, the CEO, this is Coach T kicking in right here. It's you. It's on you, sweetie. It's always going to be on you. So if you could do two things, I'm helping you now because nobody taught me this. I would go after the person that did the craziness instead of just taking ownership of the fact that I'm the leader and I'm the problem solver and we're going to fix this together. I didn't have that mindset going into this stuff. And I lost a lot of talented team members and created a lot of situations that were just uncomfortable for a lot of people because I didn't have this. So number 35 is, listen, it's your fault. So own it. It's your company. And sometimes I find too, like when my team members mess up, they're not intentionally trying to. There could be a situation where they meant to do it right, but they were missing information, they were missing resources, they were missing a tool, or they were missing some education. And so they couldn't do it. And so they made mistakes that cost the company, but it all goes back to me as leader. If they're missing any of those four things I just mentioned, then me as a leader fell short somewhere because they didn't have the tools, the technology, the information, education, resources to empower them to do it right. So again, don't get mad at me. But if there's a mess up, it's all your fault. So that should make you do a couple of things. One, be very intentional in how you equip and empower the people that are working with you. And number two, keep yourself mentally and emotionally in problem-solving mode. There is no room for victim. There is no room for blaming. There is no room for shaming. There's only room for fix it, and fix it with excellence. And then fix it in a way that going forward, you have proactive systems in place for prevention. Because when there's a mess up, it typically identifies vulnerability in the business. And that's not always a bad thing. That's a good thing. So again, when there's a mess up, it is your fault. And have the mindset of that so that you deal with things in a way that keeps you postured as a leader that your team has confidence in. Not the kind that's going to blame, shame, make people feel bad because there was a screw up. That's business. There's always going to be screw ups. But you know what I find? When there's a screw up, it shows weaknesses and it helps me make my company stronger, or it reveals something new and I create something innovative that becomes something really special that helps a lot of people. So keep your perspective right. And remember, you the boss. It's your fault.